I've longed for this day. Here I am, married to an older, overweight woman for money. Yet now, as we held each other close, I found myself enveloped by the warmth and softness of her skin. Unable to suppress the feelings welling up inside me, I released them onto her. My name is Mike Harrison. I'm a 23-year-old entry-level corporate employee. I graduated from college just a year ago. I've been doing reasonably well at my current job, and I haven't made any major mistakes. But there's one big problem. It's my scholarship repayment. My parents fell and were injured just before I went to college, so I had to go through college without their financial support. As a result, scholarship repayments weighed heavily on each month, approximately $300 a month. That's a substantial amount for someone like me who just started working and isn't making much money. My take-home salary is about $1,900. Rent is $500. Groceries are $200, plus utilities like water, and gas add up to around $100. After adding necessary expenses like my phone bill and clothes, my living expenses roughly amount to $1,100. Plus, considering the insurance I pay for, my parents, and the $300 for scholarship repayment, it easily amounts to $1,500. And that's after cutting corners by living in a cheap apartment, using a budget smartphone, and cooking my own meals. I could easily spend up to $1,700 if I'm not careful. I tried to save whatever is left over, but unexpected expenses came up occasionally, and my bank balance rarely increased. I couldn't afford the things I like, and falling ill would be disastrous. If it weren't for the $300 scholarship repayments, I could have some fun and peace of mind. I often found myself resenting the situation, but I made this choice, so I have to make the payments. It might be called a scholarship, but it's still a debt, so I can't quit my job and have no choice but to work hard. That day, I was gnawing on some cheap bread that was about to expire with a sigh. This made it 7 straight days of the same bread. I was starting to get sick of it, but I couldn't afford anything but cheap, filling food, so I had no choice. What's up, Mike? Eating bread again today. Probably because I let out a big sigh, someone slapped me on my back. Looking around, it was our CEO. The company I work for is usually the type where the CEO wants to go to the field site. It's a small company, and the boss knows all the employees' faces and names. You could say it's a homey kind of company. Ahaha, things are tight this month. Oh, is that a complaint about your wages being too low? No, that's not it. In my case, I have scholarship repayment. The boss seemed to understand and nodded, clearing up the misunderstanding. I was the only one who joined the company last year and this year, so I had no close peers or juniors. That's why occasionally the boss or my supervisor would come over to chat like this, and all I could do was give a wry smile because, in simple terms, I was saying I'm having a tough time because I'm in the middle of repaying a debt. Well, no one could help me with that. Then the boss started humming thoughtfully. Is something wrong? Well, I was planning to talk about it anyway. The boss awkwardly brought up a topic to me. Apparently, the boss's business associate, well, a chairman who has been taking care of us since long ago, was looking for a marriage partner for his daughter. The daughter is turning 40 this year. Honestly, even with matchmaking dates, she couldn't seem to find a partner. She really wanted to get married and even said, "If you marry me, I'll give you all my savings." So because of his reputation, the boss brought the issue up with me. To be honest, she's nearly twice my age. She's 40 this year, and I don't think children are on the table. That's why I wanted to just go through the motions of discussing it. The boss said there was no need for me to take it, of course. I had no intention of doing it. After all, I had never met this person, and I love kids, so I wanted to have children in the future. So I just thought of it as a performance for the sake of the CEO's reputation to show that I'd heard him out. I was supposed to have accepted it as that. At least, I thought so. What? Mom collapse. That night, I received a phone call. My mom, who had been sick, had collapsed and was admitted to the hospital. My dad's income had decreased due to the after effects of an injury, and there's almost no savings left at home. Without money to cover until the insurance came through, I impulsively transferred my meager savings to my parents. As it turned out, my mom's life wasn't in danger, but this incident put not only my scholarship but also my livelihood in jeopardy. What should I do? Looking at my nearly zero balance, I fell into despair. I should have consulted with a local authority if I thought clearly, but I wasn't thinking straight at the time, and before I knew it, I was contacting the boss. 2 days later, on my day off, I was invited to an upscale traditional restaurant. I never thought I would visit such a place in my lifetime, but today was the day to meet the chairman's daughter. So that's why I, a commoner, am here. It's formally a matchmaking date, but I had already decided to marry her. I didn't have money, and I needed money immediately to help my parents. If it's for that, marrying someone I don't even love was a small price to pay. She's a 40-year-old woman. I would just think of it as living with an aunt from my family. That's what I was thinking. Nice to meet you. I'm Jane Watson, she said. Pleased to meet you, I replied. The woman I decided to marry was absurdly, well, no offense, but she was obese. She must have been wearing nice clothes, but they seemed ready to burst at the seams, and fat was spilling out here and there. Honestly, I was taken aback. I wonder how one would have to eat or live to end up with such a figure. She was beyond belief, but I couldn't turn back now. I'm Mike Harrison. Nice to meet you. Let's drop the formalities. It's too formal, she said. It seemed that Jane had a strong personality, and I was incredibly anxious about whether I could handle this in the long run. In the end, everything proceeded smoothly, and we decided to live together. I was used to living alone, but my old renowned apartment was indeed too small for 2 people. Plus, she's the chairman's daughter. As expected, Jane took care of all the living expenses, and I ended up moving into a high-end apartment. The view was great. It was spacious. It was the best. I was a bit apprehensive about living with someone else, but we weren't close even if we were a couple. It seemed she didn't expect my love either, and she even said, "You can think of me as a family aunt, and we'll have separate bedrooms. Thank you for marrying me." The day after we finished moving, we submitted our marriage form. I started my own household, but it didn't feel real at all. Thanks to Jane, I didn't have to worry about money, and I could live in a nice house. But I decided to think of it as living in a shared house and take care of my own stuff. I've been quite reliant on Jane financially. I thought I should at least try to live independently. Good morning, Mike. Breakfast is ready. Surprisingly, Jane was quite a homely person. Her cooking skills were on par with an average person like me, and she seemed to really enjoy doing all the household chores. She did mess up sometimes, but it was nothing more than laughable. Her homemaking skills were hardly what you'd expect from a lady of her standing. Why is it so much fun when it's the same thing day after day? It seemed to me that she was doing so many things with a twinkle in her eye. What surprised me the most was her cooking. I had assumed the servings would be XXL-sized, but she never made more than enough to fill me up, and she didn't eat that much either. I'd initially thought she was a big eater, but that didn't seem to be the case. You know, my dad is overprotective of me. I think it's because my mom passed away early, but he has a maid do everything for me, so I can't do the things I want to. And he always serves me so much food. Since the maid went through the trouble of making it, I always tried to eat it all. She told me one day while we were having a beer on our day off. It seemed that she had been brought up with an excessive amount of care, and it was a burden to her. I thought the only way to escape from my father's hold was to get married. But look at me, right? I couldn't find a partner, so I had no choice but to use money. I'm sorry to have saddled you with a woman like me. When the dust settles, you can divorce me if you want. Please just let me stay by your side for a while. Jane, looking quite apologetic, said this to me. Regardless of the situation, Jane was always calm, able to see things objectively, and I felt that, as a human being, she was a woman with a strong core. Perhaps her weight gain was also due to parental oppression. Jane has been prepared to be discarded by me someday. That's why. She's living this free lifestyle now, her eyes sparkling. The first feeling I had for her was sympathy. I was able to live freely because my parents were laissez-faire, but she didn't have that luxury. If being with me allows her to be free, even if just for a bit, I wanted to support her. Although in the current situation, I was the one being supported. But it would be a lie to say that I had no affection for her. Jane was what you might call an inclusive woman. She'd console me when I made a mistake at work or was feeling down. I felt a maternal presence from her. I guess I felt incredibly at ease. I wanted to be by her side, and before I knew it, I was in love with her. Seeing Jane trying new things, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, and being overjoyed. Jane, despite her appearance, was very beautiful. So much so that I didn't care about her physical appearance. And then 5 years passed. Jane and I hadn't divorced. Instead, we had become a very lively couple. When we walked around town, passers-by couldn't help but look our way. We stood out a lot, but such scenes had become a part of our daily life. Look at her, she's like a model. She's gorgeous. A group of high school girls giggled and chattered as they passed by us. Hearing their voices, Jane shrugged and said, "I'm a bit too old to be a model, don't you think?" Yes, the person the high school girls had complimented as a model was Jane. Now, Jane exuded a mature aura and beauty, elegantly wearing a tight skirt and high heels. Why did this happen? In short, living with me liberated her from stress, reduced her food intake, and household chores made her move around more. She naturally lost weight. Not only that, she even started going to the gym, saying, "I was worried about doing intense exercise before." And before we knew it, she acquired a truly beautiful figure. You wouldn't believe she was 45. In fact, I now look bare in comparison. Scenes like this reminded me once again of the horror of stress. But sometime later, Jane became bedridden. She stopped going to the gym and even struggled with meals. I was afraid, thinking she was sick, when I heard Jane's voice from the bedroom. We basically sleep in the same bedroom now, but when we want to be alone or are unwell, we use the beds in our separate rooms. Lately, Jane had been spending all her time in her own room. "Mike, I have something important to discuss with you." "Oh, okay." Jane's frail voice. She mentioned going to the hospital today. Could it be a serious illness? With shaking hands, I braced myself and entered her bedroom. I would try not to be surprised no matter what she told me. I was sure she was the one suffering. Entering the bedroom, I found Jane lying down, looking in pain. Seeing her slowly sitting up, I couldn't help but ask in a voice close to tears, "Are you okay?" Shoot, I didn't want to make her worry. Biting my lip, I regretted my words. Seeing my reaction, Jane said, "I'm sorry to worry you. I went for a checkup today, had them look inside me." Then, she handed me a picture printed in black and white with a small circle marked on it. Inside the circled area, there was a small dot. "Wait, is this?" "Yes, It's an echograph. I knew what Jane was trying to say. So this meant, I'm pregnant. What? Really? I let out a stunned exclamation. Of course, Jane and I had shared nights together, so there was a possibility. But I was sure the chance of a natural pregnancy at 45 was about 1%. The doctor said it was a miracle. Jane revealed with tears of joy welling up in her eyes. It turned out that all the recent discomfort she had been experiencing was morning sickness, and there was nothing else wrong with her health. I had given up on having a child, but knowing that a baby, our baby, is growing inside me, I'm so happy. I've been longing for this day, she admitted before breaking down in tears. I gently, very gently, held her in my arms. I could feel her warmth and hear her heartbeat, and I found myself tearing up too. Thank you, Jane. Truly, thank you. I am so happy right now. We two, both of us grown adults, wailed pitifully. Sure, there are risks associated with late-life pregnancy, and undoubtedly we're about to face all sorts of challenges. But none of that matters now. All we want is to share the joy of welcoming this new life. Our thoughts turn to the even happier future that's sure to come. I'm going to go with the staff if you're the CEO. This business is over. Holding a pile of envelopes from the desk, Tucker said as he stood in the CEO's office. I reasoned. So, that's how it is. In the past, I had flatly refused Tucker's demands when he came to discuss his pay. While leaving, he muttered something along the lines of, "You'll regret this." He appears to be attempting to persuade people to accept his resignation. Although I am to blame for letting a disobedient worker like him get away with it, I made sure to check with Tucker, because this is a serious issue. Tucker, just to confirm, you have decided to resign from the company, correct? I inquired. With a chuckle, Tucker held his stomach. Obviously. That's what I've always been saying. There is no other option because you will not increase my pay. Talented individuals today are aware of when to leave a dull organization. Thank you, I murmured, looking Tucker in the eye after hearing this. That is really beneficial. We'll take the required actions immediately. Tucker looked at me bewildered and said, "What?" without realizing what was about to happen. He is still unaware that a really unpleasant reality is going to be revealed. You can call me Shane Conway. I am the CEO of a new age company, and I am in my 30s. It may sound amazing to be the CEO of a startup, but I did not establish this business. There is nothing to be proud of because I became the CEO by accident. This business was founded by my father a few years ago, but he suddenly became unwell and died without getting better. It's not surprising that he overexerted himself because he had been working nonstop and hardly getting any sleep. I worked for a big trade company and lived overseas for a number of years while Dad was running the business. I was aware that he had launched a company, but he left before I could see his hardships and successes. Dad had urged me to work for the company once, but that chance was gone forever. I had no concerns about the future. My thrifty lifestyle had allowed me to save a sizable amount of savings. I was enticed when Dad shared his aspirations to launch a business with me. But I told him I wanted to concentrate on finishing a big project at work before making a decision because I was in the middle of it. I found out about his death before I could finish that assignment. I went back home, quit my trading firm, and took over my father's company. I can't say I'm very proud of myself in light of these circumstances, but I also can't keep looking back. Dad was always encouraging and supportive. I had a difficult past, but I currently work for a large trade organization. I had trouble fitting in middle school and had to transfer to a charter school. Pursue what you love and focus on your strengths, my father advised me at the time. You'll find out what you're good at eventually. I was inspired by such suggestion to pursue programming, computer science, and other fields that I thought would be interesting or helpful in the future. Thanks to his encouragement, I developed apps and interacted with people worldwide, even while still in middle school. I want to honor Dad's memory by taking the company public and making it a force for good in society. Fulfilling his dreams would be the ultimate way to repay him. With that vision in mind, I am now managing the company he left behind. After about a year of running the company, I began noticing various issues within it. Operational inefficiencies are relatively easy to fix, but the real challenge lies in people. Moreover, the problem is even deeper rooted because of the behavior of a certain person who serves as the general manager, a position in which he manages his subordinates. The department manager's name was Tucker, but his work attitude was clearly excessive. Reports from other employees indicated that Tucker spends much of his working hours on side gigs. "Mr. Conway, I'm heading out for a bit," Tucker said casually. Perhaps because he's in his 40s and older than me, Tucker has spoken to me informally since I became CEO. Given our operations, there's almost no reason for Tucker to need to visit the post office, so I stopped him. "Thank you for your hard work. May I ask where you're headed?" Tucker gave me an annoyed look and replied, "It's nothing. Sometimes you need to go out for work. I have a personal client to pay today." As he spoke, he picked up a large package and prepared to leave the office. However, our company rarely handles cash or face-to-face transactions. Most of our processes are handled online. Moreover, finance and sales usually manage payments, so this wasn't part of Tucker's job. His explanation didn't make sense to me at all. "We make payments online, don't we? And what's in that package? Are you delivering something to a client?" When I pressed further, Tucker frowned and spoke quickly. "The client isn't tech-savvy and only accepts in-person payments. Besides, getting out of the office once in a while boosts productivity. The package is just my stuff, and I'm putting it in my car. Honestly, it feels like you're micromanaging everyone, and it's stifling." With that, Tucker kicked the office door open roughly and hurriedly left. According to the employees, Tucker's primary side hustle appears to be reselling goods online. While our company doesn't prohibit side jobs, they are allowed only if they don't leak company information or cause any harm. However, this allowance is strictly for activities outside of working hours. As long as he's receiving a salary from our company, he's obligated to focus solely on our business during working hours. If he's dedicating work hours to his reselling activities, then it's a significant issue. After questioning him so thoroughly today, I hope he at least feels some discomfort about continuing such behavior. Still, if I keep receiving similar reports from other employees, a thorough investigation will be necessary. It's disappointing that someone in a managerial position, who should be guiding and mentoring others, is the subject of such suspicions. Resolving to monitor Tucker's actions more closely, I returned to my work. However, just as I tried to focus, messages of concern from employees kept coming in. As part of our company benefits, we stock snacks and coffee for employees, but the budget for these is being depleted at an alarming rate. The frequency of coffee bean purchases has doubled, and snacks are disappearing by the box. On one occasion, a large amount of snacks I replenished with my own money vanished in a single day. Finding this strange, I posted a notice asking employees to be more mindful, but there was no improvement. On top of that, Holly, our finance manager, came to me for advice. "It's about Tucker," she said, looking distressed. "His expense claims are blatantly inappropriate. He's submitting bills for private dinners and family meals without hesitation. Could you do something about it?" She added with a troubled expression. Holly is an incredibly talented individual, with certifications as a lawyer and tax accountant, like me. She had a tough time in middle school and was homeschooled for a while, focusing solely on her studies. Driven by a desire to prove wrong those who looked down on her, she worked incredibly hard, which I deeply admire. On several occasions, I've witnessed Tucker mocking Holly because of her past struggles. Each time, I admonished him, but his response was always off the mark. You shouldn't be too harsh on someone so emotionally fragile. I admire Holly, who is almost the same age as me but has great ability and will. But she continued with a gloomy look on her face. Actually, I once saw him taking office supplies without permission, she added. I subtly warned him, but it seems he's still doing it. Since Tucker is older and often acts condescendingly, Holly probably finds it difficult to confront him directly. As we were discussing this in the break room, Luke walked in to make some coffee. Luke, who's also around my age, is a key contributor to the company with his expertise in marketing and sales. Thanks to his experience running his own business in the past, although his own company failed, he's used those lessons to offer invaluable suggestions to our organization. Having been with the company since my father founded it, Luke knows the company inside out. It's no exaggeration to say that the company functions smoothly even with me suddenly stepping in as CEO because of people like Luke. Holly and Luke are incredible assets to the company. Overhearing our conversation, Luke joined in. Holly, I think you should let Shane know about the other issue as well. It's not good to handle this alone. It's a problem for the organization as a whole, he said. Holly hesitated but eventually started speaking, her eyes welling up with tears. Lately, Tucker has been persistently inviting me to dinners that involve drinking. At first, I complied, but his intentions became increasingly obvious and uncomfortable. Tucker has a family, and above all, I feel genuinely afraid. Despite her expertise in legal matters, it's hard for her to act decisively when she's directly involved. Holly also loves this company and doesn't want to leave or feel unwelcome here. Knowing how much she cares about the company, I felt even more determined to ensure she didn't endure any further discomfort. Luke seemed to share my sentiments and, in an unusually firm tone, said, "If this is true, Holly shouldn't have to keep suffering. This is a serious issue, and we need to take immediate action." I nodded in agreement. "We'll prepare to set up an investigative committee. Please keep me informed of anything else that comes up." As we were discussing this, Tucker suddenly appeared in the break room. "How can you guys just stand around chatting in such a small space?" he said. "I need to make coffee, so move out of the way, will you?" He gestured dismissively at me with his hand, clearly annoyed. Though irritated, I stepped aside to let him pass. From his attitude, it seemed he hadn't overheard our conversation. After making his coffee, Tucker grabbed a handful of snacks from the overflowing snack box and said, "Later," as he walked out. At that moment, Luke called out to Tucker, "Tucker, are you really eating all those snacks by yourself? If you take that much, no one else will get any. Oh, by the way, I love the snacks." Luke spoke in a light-hearted, playful tone, so Tucker didn't seem offended and even smiled. Luke's ability to communicate without creating tension, combined with his strong work ethic, is a testament to why he excels in sales. "Oh, I didn't know you liked these. Next time, I'll bring some in for you. Look forward to it," Tucker replied. However, despite his words, Tucker left with a large pile of snacks in hand. Holly watched him leave and let out a sigh. Tucker being generous enough to bring snacks. "That'll never happen," she muttered. Witnessing these dynamics in the office left me feeling heavy-hearted. As the CEO, it's my responsibility to create an environment where employees can work comfortably. With that thought in mind, I left the break room, mentally planning my next steps. The next day, more trouble landed on my plate. As soon as I'd arrived at the office, Tucker stormed into the CEO's office. "Since you became CEO, my salary hasn't increased at all. Care to explain why that is?" Over the past year, I've gotten a clearer view of the company's operations, but one thing is certain. Tucker's performance has been far from exceptional. Not to mention, he's currently facing allegations of inappropriate expense claims, misappropriation of company property, working on side hustles during company hours, and harassment complaints from employees. He seems unaware of all this and clearly lacks the ability to objectively evaluate his own work performance. It's troubling to have an employee who demands a raise while doing so little. Of course, I couldn't say any of this outright, so I carefully chose my words to help him understand. I fully understand the importance of increasing employee satisfaction and retaining talented individuals to grow the company. I'm still assessing things as I settle into this role, but I'd assure you I'm committed to investing in personnel. Keep up the good work. I'm counting on you. Although I wanted to confront him with the reality, it wasn't the right time. Much still needed to be prepared. However, Tucker didn't like my response and became even more agitated. If talent is so important, you should raise salaries now. Otherwise, people like me, top talent, will leave. It's a competitive job market these days, you know. He was clearly trying to intimidate me, but it only left me feeling disgusted. His threats didn't faze me. I carefully hid my emotions and replied with a smile. I understand your point. However, if the company doesn't remain sustainable, it's all for nothing. We're finally gaining traction, and anyone can see that increasing labor costs significantly right now isn't a wise move. Hearing this, Tucker slammed his hand on my desk and gave me an unsettling grin. Fine. That's your answer then. Don't come crying to me later. With those words, he turned his back and left the office without so much as a goodbye, slamming the door behind him. Later that evening, I returned from an outing to find a stack of envelopes on my desk. Curious, I picked them up and discovered that each one was labeled resignation letter. There were about 30 envelopes in total. It's unheard of for so many employees to submit their resignations at once. When I looked up, Tucker was standing in the doorway, having entered my office without me noticing. Grinning, he declared, "If you stay on as CEO, I'll take the employees with me. This company is done for." So that's his plan. All those times, he muttered, "You'll regret this." He was to resign and drag others down with him. It's my responsibility as CEO to prevent such rebellion, but it's still disappointing. Still, I made sure to confirm an important point with Tucker. "Tucker, just to confirm, are you saying you're resigning from the company?" Tucker burst into laughter, holding his stomach. "Of course I am. How many times do I have to say it? You didn't give me a raise, so I have no choice. Talented people won't stick around in a boring company anymore." Hearing this, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Thank you. That's very helpful. I'll start processing the paperwork immediately." Tucker, clueless about what I was implying, looked at me with a baffled expression and blurted out, "What?" He still doesn't know that the truth, which is far from convenient for him, is about to come to light. What's the meaning of this? Don't try to bluff me. Even Luke and Holly, the core members of this company, are leaving. I knew this wasn't true, but I chose not to deny it outright. Instead, I began to reveal the facts to Tucker one step at a time. "I understand your intention to resign, Tucker, but we'll be contacting you a few times going forward, so please ensure you're available. Other than your accumulated funds, there's likely nothing else we owe you. I wanted to inform you in advance so you can plan for the future." Tucker's eyes widened at my words. "Hey, what nonsense are you spouting? Are you saying I won't get any compensation or bonus? I've been working diligently. What have I done to deserve this?" As Tucker stepped forward aggressively, Luke and Holly entered the office. Holly spoke first. "Are you not aware of your actions? Your offenses have been largely proven, and you will have to face the consequences." Tucker looked between Luke and Holly with a trembling voice. "Wait, what's going on here? Aren't you two leaving with me? You promised to quit this company and work for the one I'm starting, didn't you?" Holly and Luke looked at each other at Tucker's words. Luke then said in disgust, "Who said we were coming with you? I might have said it sounds interesting, but I never agreed to anything. Starting a company isn't as easy as you think. Someone who can't even earn the trust of their colleagues isn't likely to succeed. There's no way we're getting on a sinking ship we can already see as doomed." While Tucker's words seemed to come from an idea that did not seem to have accumulated management knowledge, the words of Luke, who has started a business once and experienced failure, carry a different weight. Luke knows the joys and fears of starting a business. He must intuitively understand that Tucker will not be able to make it work. Luke continued, "By the way, in the company you plan to start, would you turn a blind eye if your employees worked on side hustles? If so, maybe I'll take a job at your company while still working here. Oh, and for the record, I've already reported to Shane that you've been reselling goods during work hours." Tucker visibly panicked at Luke's remark. "What? How do you know?" "You must be mistaken. I've never done any side hustles." Desperate to deny it, Tucker tried to deflect, but Luke pressed on relentlessly. "Then why do you, someone with no need to leave the office frequently, go out during work hours? You claimed it was for a transaction with someone unfamiliar with the internet, but there's no record of such transactions anywhere in our systems. Out of curiosity, I once followed you to see for myself." Hearing this, Tucker snapped and retorted defiantly, "You spied on me? That's a dirty trick. Anyway, the blame lies with the boss who underpays me. I have a family to support. I had no choice." Tucker's claims were baseless. He was being paid above the industry average. If he couldn't manage his finances, it was either due to poor budgeting or outright dishonesty. Before Tucker could continue his excuses, Holly stepped in. "So that's why you've been submitting inappropriate expense claims. We verified that you filed expenses for family dinners and personal purchases. Every one of those receipts has been traced." As Holly spoke, Tucker's face turned pale, and sweat began to beat on his forehead. His reaction only confirmed the truth of her accusation. Holly pressed further. "By the way, do you recognize that old printer over there? It's one I purchased on a resale app." Tucker turned to look at the printer Holly was pointing at. His eyes widened in shock. "No way," he murmured under his breath. "You've been taking company property and selling it online, haven't you? The model numbers match, and some still have the company's inventory stickers attached. Recently, your sales must have spiked, right? That's because I've been buying them back." As Tucker's knees began to shake, Holly approached him, her voice chillingly cold. "Under the charge of embezzlement, you could face up to 10 years in prison. Additionally, your repeated mockery of me for my school history constitutes defamation. I could seek monetary damages for that." Ignoring his pleas for forgiveness, Holly continued, her gaze icy. "And let's not forget how you forced me to go to a bar despite my refusals. I won't ever forget that. Your actions could be classified as course of sexual misconduct, which carries a potential prison sentence of 6 months to 10 years. Be prepared for the consequences." Tucker collapsed to his knees, defeated. Looking up at me, he spoke in a faint voice. "So, they're not resigning, are they? And I guess none of the others will follow me either." Feeling both pity and contempt, I responded honestly. It's not like I immediately thought the resignation letters were fake, but when I saw that all the handwriting matched, it raised suspicions. When I first saw the resignation letters, I thought perhaps I had driven my employees to the brink. But after noticing that the handwriting on all the envelopes was identical, I began to suspect they were forged. Tucker's sudden announcement that he was taking employees with him only solidified my doubts. "In any case, you can't stay here any longer. Pack up your things and leave by the end of the day. We'll be in touch about the next steps. Thank you for your time here." Tucker quietly left the office. Further investigations revealed even more misconduct on Tucker's part. The most serious issue was the breach of customer data. It came to light that he had sold sensitive company information to third parties for substantial sums of money. The sheer amount of wrongdoings we uncovered required thorough review and legal action. Ironically, the reselling side hustle he was so proud of turned out to be a failure. Once Holly, his main buyer, stopped purchasing from him, it seemed his sales completely dried up. Once all of Tucker's offenses were confirmed, he would undoubtedly face consequences far greater than the small profits he made. I heard that he had to sell his newly built house and now lives alone in a small apartment. Perhaps even his family has abandoned him. I don't know what lies ahead for him, but I can only hope that he takes responsibility for his actions and moves forward with a sense of repentance. As for me, I've already begun working on expanding our business alongside my talented team. Going public is just the beginning. I also aim to expand internationally in the future. If everything goes well, the company's performance will grow exponentially. Dad's dream is within reach. Sometimes, I feel anxious about whether everything will truly work out, but in those moments, I picture Dad's face and shake off the doubt. I'm determined to succeed. As I looked up at the sky, I felt as though Dad was smiling and nodding in approval.